Nothing drives and nothing will explain the North's unstoppable economic growth as we head towards the Civil War as much as the rising educational infrastructure in northern states. The idea of just educating your workforce with a broad education. This is right around the time Horace Mann is doing his stuff in Massachusetts, coming up with standardized education. That'll become the gold standard around the world. And that idea of just educate everybody. Educate everybody. Doesn't matter it's better off for the economy and for the state and for everybody if you just educate everybody.
Couldn't we do that everywhere? Why is that only the North that embraced that?
I don't know. Part of it's egalitarianism. The other part is just like, it's a more advanced thought. It's like, it's the Einstein theory, right? One person come up with one idea that helps everybody. And that marginal value of that one idea is going to be greater than it costs to educate everybody. So you might as well just educate everybody.
Or is it going back to what we talked about earlier and just the urban density, and the density just didn't support the development of infrastructure in the South?
Absolutely. That's a good one too. It's easier to educate people and it's easier to build a school. If your teacher's only teaching one person because there's so few kids, that's less efficient than your teacher teaching 15 kids so that you can have more teachers. I'm with you on that. The South is at the opposite end of the spectrum. We see massive wealth concentration all around exports, but we see weaker. All income growth in the United States is just strong during this time period, but it's relatively weaker. In the South, obviously marginal income growth, when you look at people who are making less money, is higher because of convergence. So you actually see like lower income people making way more money now, which obviously draws young talent from the South to come up north. And especially because this is an export-centric economy. That means it just becomes hyper-dependent on the ability to export cotton, and it does it to the point where there is really no ability to pivot, and this is pure Dutch disease. We are somehow seeing a country that in one area of it is experiencing horrific Dutch disease like we've never seen before. Dutch disease is when you have one extractive, export-driven sector that sucks up all the labor and creates apathy towards economic intensification elsewhere. So you end up with just every industry feeding that one thing, that one industry. All the complement industries then become reliant on that one industry's success. That industry fails, and then everything else fails. You've developed no additional talent. You've developed no ability to pivot in the economy. That is the South right now, and that's it with cotton. And it's reliant on
none of those resources got sent to develop any of the other things that could get you out of that mess.
They're not going to education. They become more reliant and more violent and more willing to sacrifice everything to maintain their horrific system of slavery. And they're doing this because they have no other option. They literally squandered and concentrated the wealth into groups of people who didn't care about development. Capital did not flow to its most efficient means of return. Did it flow perfectly in the North to its most efficient means of return? No. There's greedy people everywhere. But
did a lot better.
North did a hell of a lot better, because that poor kid who grows up in the tenant house or grows up in, like I said, not really in that area yet, but is working class, but he gets the same education as the middle class kid, that is going to produce better outcomes. That's not a controversial economic thing. That's just going to produce better outcomes. Look at countries that have universal education when it comes to K through 12. And look at countries that don't. And show me one where one's beating the other, because you're just not going to see it. But so the South is the same story over and over again. Its solution to being economically dependent on cotton is to become more economically dependent on cotton.
We need more cotton. Yeah.